The world had changed in ways no one could have foreseen once. The sky had been blue, plants green, and the sun a constant companion to all life. But now it was dark, endlessly dark. The sun no longer rose, the stars no longer twinkled, and the moon remained hidden behind a thick veil of cloud. In this new era, humans had grown accustomed to moving through the shadows, relying on weak, artificial lights to guide their way. It was a time of despair, of hopelessness, and of desperation. Noah stood at the edge of a broken city, the faint flicker of his wristlight casting eerie shadows over the cracked pavement. Buildings that had once soared proudly into the sky were now crumbling ruins, their windows shattered and their facades blackened by decay. He remembered when this city had been vibrant, alive, filled with the sound of people laughing, cars honking, and birds singing. Now it was a graveyard, a silent testament to what had been lost. He pulled his coat tighter around him as the cold bit into his skin. The air was thin and tasted of metal, the plants long dead from lack of sunlight. Humanity had been driven underground, hiding from the creeping death that had overtaken the surface. It had been years since the darkness first descended, years since hope had fled with the light. But Noah wasn't too ready to give up, not yet. In his hands, he held a tattered manuscript, its pages worn and fragile. The ancient symbols, nearly forgotten in the modern age, spoke of a place, a realm beyond their own. A world of eternal daylight where the sun never set and life flourished in abundance. It was a legend, passed down through whispers and stories, dismissed by most as myth. But Noah had uncovered something in his research, something that made him believe the legend was real. A faint hum in his earpiece brought him back to the present. "Noah, we've made contact with the others," a voice said, crackling through the static. It was Olivia, his assistant, speaking from the underground lab they had set up beneath the ruins of the city. "Good," Noah replied. "Tell them to prepare. We leave in an hour." He turned away from the ruined city, his mind already on the journey ahead. The passage to the land of eternal day, if it even existed, was hidden somewhere in the mountains, far beyond the reach of what was left of civilization. He had gathered a small team, survivors like him, each with their reasons for joining the expedition. Some sought salvation, others adventure, but for Noah, it was about something more, about proving that science could still save them even in the face of overwhelming darkness. As he descended into the lab, the dim glow of the emergency lights cast a red hue over everything. The sound of footsteps echoed through the concrete halls as his team gathered in the main room. Olivia was there, along with Sarah, a former colleague turned spiritual leader, and 3 others, Malik, a survivalist with a reputation for getting out of tight spots. Elias, a quiet, brooding man who had lost his family in the early days of the darkness, and Claire, a medic, who had seen more death than anyone should in a lifetime. Noah could feel the tension in the room as he approached Sarah, with her long dark hair and piercing eyes, stood apart from the others, her expression unreadable. She had been a scientist once like him, but somewhere along the way, she had turned to faith, convinced that the darkness was a punishment from some higher power. She believed the manuscript was not just a map, but a prophecy. "You sure this is the right thing to do?" she asked, her voice calm but firm. "There are some things we aren't meant to meddle with, Noah, some doors that shouldn't be open." Noah met her gaze. "You used to believe in the power of discovery, Sarah. What happened?" "I still believe," she replied, her eyes softening, "but I also believe there's more at play here than we understand. The darkness, did it just happen? It's part of something larger, something we can't control." Noah sighed. He had heard this argument before, and while he respected Sarah's perspective, he couldn't afford to doubt now. "If we don't try, we re-condemning the world to a slow, inevitable death," he said. "We have to bring back the light, whatever it takes." Sarah looked away, her lips pressed into a thin line. "Just be careful, Noah. Sometimes the light can blind as much as the darkness." The journey through the mountains was grueling, the cold was biting, and the air grew thinner with each step. The group moved in silence, their breath visible in the frigid air as they climbed higher into the peak. The landscape around them was barren, no trees, no animals, only jagged rocks and the occasional skeletal remains of a long dead creature. The darkness was ever present, oppressive, a constant reminder of the world they had left behind. Noah led the way, his eyes scanning the horizon for any sign of the passage described in the manuscript. It was said to be hidden deep within a cave, guarded by ancient traps and forgotten magic. He wasn't sure what to expect. He only knew that if they didn't find it soon, their supplies would run out, and they would be stranded in the mountains, lost to the eternal night. Behind him, Sarah kept her distance, her quiet prayers barely audible over the sound of the wind. Malik and Elias scouted ahead, their weapons at the ready, while Claire stayed close, her medkit slung over her shoulder in case of injury. It was Elias who spotted it first, a narrow crack in the side of the mountain, just wide enough for a person to squeeze through. There he called out, his voice muffled by the wind. That's got to be it. Noah hurried over, his heart pounding in his chest. The crack was almost hidden, its edges smooth and unnatural, as if carved by hands long ago. This is it, he murmured, running his fingers along the stone. Reclose. The team gathered around him, their faces a mix of exhaustion and anticipation. Noah reached into his pack, pulling out a small device, a scanner designed to detect anomalies in the environment. He held it up to the crack, watching as the screen flickered to light. The readings were off the chart. This is it, he said again, louder this time, the passage to the land of eternal day. Malik stepped forward, peering into the crack. Doesn't look like much, he said, his voice laced with doubt. You sure this thing goes anywhere? Noah nodded. The readings, Donna. He lie there, something on the other side, something big. Sarah crossed her arms, her expression unreadable. And what if we were not meant to cross? She asked, her voice quiet but firm. What if this is a boundary we were never meant to breach? Noah turned to her, his patience wearing thin. I respect your beliefs, Sarah, but this is our only shot. If there is even a chance that this passage leads to the land of eternal day, we have to take it. Sarah didn't reply, but the look in her eyes said enough. She wasn't convinced. Noah took a deep breath, turning back to the crack. All right, let's move, he said, slipping through the narrow opening. The passage was dark and narrow, the walls pressing in on either side as they moved deeper into the mountain. On the sound of their footsteps echoed off the stone. Noah kept his wristlight trained ahead, his heart pounding in his chest as the tunnel twisted and turned, seemingly endless. Finally, after what felt like hours, the passage widened, opening up into a vast cavern. The ceiling was high, too high to see, and the air was thick with the smell of damp stone. Noah's light flickered, casting eerie shadows on the wall. At the far end of the cavern, a faint glow caught his eye. That's it, he whispered, his voice barely audible the way through. As they approached the glow, Noah felt a strange sensation wash over him, a sense of unease, of something watching them from the shadows. The air felt charged, like the calm before a storm. And then, without warning, the ground beneath them trembled. Noah stumbled, reaching out to steady himself against the cavern wall. The others froze, eyes wide with fear as small rocks cascaded from above. A low rumble echoed through the cavern, growing louder by the second. What's happening? Claire shouted, her voice tinged with panic. Before anyone could answer, a brilliant light pierced the darkness ahead. It was blinding, a stark contrast to the perpetual night they had known for so long. Noah shielded his eyes, squinting to see the source. The glow intensified, filling the cavern with an ethereal radiance. From within the light, figures began to emerge, translucent and otherworldly. They moved gracefully, their forms shimmering like mirages. Noah's heart raced as he realized they were not alone. Are they human? Malik whispered, his hand tightening around his weapon. Sarah stepped forward, her face illuminated by the glow. Sally, they are guardians. Peace, he said softly, very protectors of the passage. One of the figures approached, its eyes reflecting the light of 1,000 suns. It spoke without words, its voice echoing in their minds. Why have you come to this sacred place? Noah took a hesitant step forward. We seek the land of eternal day, Claire, he replied, his voice steady. Our world is dying. We need your help. The guardian regarded him silently before turning its gaze to Sarah. And you, child of faith, do you seek the same? Sarah met its eyes, a mix of awe and sorrow, on her face. Tariq, I seek understanding, Tariq, she said, to know if our fate is sealed or if there is hope for redemption. The guardian seemed to consider her words. The balance between light and dark is delicate. To disrupt it could bring ruin to both realms. Noah felt a surge of frustration, but our world is lost in darkness. He insisted. Irie, we have to do something. The guardian extended a hand and a vision unfolded before them, a vast landscape where the two worlds overlap. In the vision, Noah saw the consequences of their actions. If they brought light back to their world, the land of eternal day would be cast into darkness. the balance would shift, and both worlds could be destroyed. There's gotta be another way. Noah said desperately, Hero, we can't just accept this. There is always a price for altering the natural order, the Guardian replied. Are you willing to pay it? Silence fell over the group as they grappled with the weight of the decision. Malik and Elias exchanged uneasy glances while Claire looked to Noah for guidance. Sarah stepped forward again. Maybe instead of taking from this world, we should learn from it. Noah turned to her, confusion etched on his face. Claire, what do you mean? She took a deep breath. The darkness taught us to adapt, to find strength in adversity. Maybe the light can do the same. Instead of trying to bring the light back, perhaps we can find a way to coexist with the darkness. The Guardian nodded subtly. Wisdom lies not in changing the world to suit us, but in changing ourselves to suit the world. Noah felt a flicker of doubt. Could it be that he'd been so focused on restoring the past that he had overlooked the possibility of a different future? But how do we survive without the sun? Ella, he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Sarah placed a gentle hand on his shoulder, tapped her by finding new ways to live. Tira, she said. Combining science and faith to create a new beginning. The Guardian began to fade, the light dimming around them. The choice is yours. Return to your world and decide your fate. As the figures vanished, the cavern plunged back into darkness for a moment. No one spoke. Finally, Malik broke the silence. So that's it. We came all this way for nothing. Noah said slowly, we came all this way to find answers, and I think we have. He turned to the group, determination shining in his eyes. We've been clinging to the past, trying to restore what was lost. But maybe it's time to look forward, to build something new. Elias frowned. And how do we do that? By using what we've learned, Noah replied. Yuri, we can harness geothermal energy, develop new agricultural methods, underground, find alternative ways to sustain life without the sun. Claire nodded thoughtfully. It's not going to be easy, but it's possible. Malik shrugged. Better than getting crushed in a cave or messing up two worlds. Sarah smiled softly. Perhaps this was the purpose of our journey, not to change our world, but to change ourselves. Noah felt a sense of peace settle over him. For the first time since the darkness fell, he saw a glimmer of hope, not in reclaiming the light of the sun, but in igniting the light within themselves. The return journey was quieter, but filled with a newfound resolve. Back at the underground lab, Noah gathered the remaining survivors. He shared their experiences, their discoveries, and their new plan for the future. They began to work tirelessly, pooling their knowledge and skill. Engineers designed subterranean farms using artificial light sources powered by geothermal vents. Scientists developed crops that could grow in low-light conditions. Communities formed, united by a common purpose. Months turned into years, and slowly, life began to flourish again, not as it had before, but in a new and sustainable way. The darkness above remained, but it no longer felt like a curse. It was simply another challenge to overcome. Noah and Sarah worked side by side, bridging the gap between science and faith. They taught that survival depended not on conquering nature, but on harmonizing with it. Their message spread, inspiring others to adapt and innovate. One evening, Noah stood on a high ledge overlooking the underground city they had built. The soft glow of lights illuminated the vast cavern, revealing a bustling community below. Laughter and music echoed off the walls, a stark contrast to the silence of the world above. Sarah joined him, her eyes reflecting the warm light. Fry, it's incredible, isn't it? Trey, she said. Sarah, what we've accomplished together. He nodded. I never imagined we'd come this far. She glanced at him, a hint of mischief in her smile. Chao still missed the sun. He chuckled softly. Sometimes, but I think we've found something just as powerful. They stood in comfortable silence, each lost in their thought. After a moment, Noah spoke again. Do you ever wonder what would have happened if we'd tried to bring the light back? Sarah sighed gently. I think we would have lost more than we gained. The Guardians were right, the balance is delicate. He turned to face her. Thank you for helping me see that. She met his gaze, and thank you for believing that we could adapt. It took both of us to get here. As they watched the community thrive, Noah felt the deep sense of contentment. They had faced the darkness and found a way to live within it, to find light where there was none. The eternal night remained, but it no longer held the same power over them. Humanity had found a new path, not by reclaiming the past, but by embracing the possibilities of the future. And in that realization, they discovered that the true light, the one that mattered most, came from within.